welcome back to the channel. I'm Stacy and you're watching Pop Culture Time Machine, where we hit rewind and relive the legendary, the cringy, and the unforgettable moments that happened this very week, way back when. All right, let's kick it off with the Beatles finishing the recording sessions for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band on April 21st, 1967. It marked a turning point in pop culture where popular music fully redefined itself as art, experience, and identity. The moment wasn't just about an album being completed, it symbolized a new cultural era. Before Sgt. Pepper, pop albums were often built quickly, focused on singles, designed for touring promotion. By spending months in the studio and then stopping live touring altogether, the Beatles made a radical statement, using the studio itself as an instrument. The pop culture shift was that popular music earned the same artistic respect as film, literature, and fine art. Albums were now judged on concept, cohesion, and ambition, not just hits. By inventing a fictional band, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the Beatles stepped outside their own fame, questioned celebrity itself, gave artists permission to reinvent themselves. The pop culture shift was identity became fluid. Musicians and later pop stars could adopt personas, aesthetics, and eras, a template still used today. So when recording ended and the album arrived, psychedelia entered the mainstream. Eastern philosophy, drugs, and spirituality surfaced openly. Optimism, experimentation, and idealism dominated youth culture. The pop culture shift was that pop music became the emotional center of a generation's worldview, not just entertainment. The album was designed to be heard start to finish, experienced repeatedly, and it was to be absorbed, not skimmed. The pop culture shift was that listening became immersive and intentional. This shaped headphone culture, album art obsession, and deep fandom. After Sgt. Pepper, albums took longer to make. Budgets grew, record labels tolerated experimentation. Briefly, though, critics treated pop albums seriously. The pop culture shift was that ambition became the new baseline. Artists were expected to evolve, not repeat themselves. The album proved that young people weren't just consumers, they were tastemakers, thinkers, and cultural leaders. The pop culture shift was that youth culture stopped imitating adults and began defining society itself. In simple terms, when Sgt. Pepper was finished, pop culture crossed a line. Music became conceptual and immersive. Image, sound, and philosophy fused. Pop stopped chasing trends and started creating them. Everything from Pink Floyd and David Bowie to hip hop concept albums and modern era cultural traces back to that moment. Let's not forget those iconic movies when Annie Hall was released on April 20th, 1977. It quietly but permanently changed the emotional and intellectual language of pop culture. It wasn't just a romantic comedy, it redefined how love, identity, and modern life could be portrayed on screen. Before Annie Hall, most rom coms were plot driven, neatly resolved, idealized, or escapist. Annie Hall was messy, neurotic, self aware, emotionally unresolved. The pop culture shift came as love became realistic rather than idealized. Relationships didn't have to last to be meaningful. The film openly depicted psychoanalysis, self doubt, emotional introspection, urban anxiety. The pop culture shift came as talking about feelings became normal in public. Introspection became stylish rather than embarrassing. The movie celebrated art films, literature, philosophy, and mental illness. The pop culture shift came as being smart, awkward, and self questioning became romantic. This reshaped how masculinity and desirability were portrayed. Diane Keaton's Annie Hall style, menswear inspired outfits, loose silhouettes, androgyny. The pop culture shift came as personal style became a form of self expression, not just glamour. Her look influenced fashion for decades. The film used direct address to the audience. Nonlinear storytelling, animation and fantasy, meta commentary. The pop culture shift came as experimental storytelling entered the mainstream without announcing itself as artsy. New York City was intellectual, anxious, romantic, and alienating. The pop culture shift came as the city became a character, influencing decades of urban centric storytelling in film and TV. Annie Hall didn't chase trends, it created one: vulnerability, irony, self awareness. The pop culture shift came as cool stopped being confident and became reflective. In simple terms, Annie Hall meant romance could be imperfect and honest. Talking about feelings became pop culture. Intelligence and neurosis became attractive. Fashion expressed personality. Storytelling rules loosened. The film didn't just reflect the late 1970s, it taught pop culture how to think, feel, and dress in the modern world. Here is your Did You Know of the Week. On April 19th, 1948, when the ABC television network officially debuted as a major U.S. broadcast network, evolving from the former Dumont and Blue network, it reshaped pop culture by breaking the dominance of a few voices and redefining who television was for. ABC's arrival helped push TV from an elite conservative medium into a younger, more experimental mass cultural force. Before ABC, NBC and CBS dominated. Programming was cautious and prestige oriented. Innovation was slow. ABC had to compete aggressively, so it took creative risks, targeted underserved audiences, tried new formats. The pop culture shift came as competition fueled experimentation. Television began evolving faster and taking bigger creative chances. So ABC leaned into younger viewers, teens, and young adult taste, faster pacing, and trend awareness. This later led to shows centered on youth culture, music, counterculture, emerging social change. So the pop culture shift came as young people were no longer background viewers. They became cultural drivers. ABC played a key role in bringing music to television, such as The American Bandstand, one of the most influential pop culture shows ever, regular appearances by rock and pop artists. The pop culture shift came as music became visual. Seeing artists mattered as much as hearing them, setting the stage for MTV and modern pop stardom. ABC gave space to new performers, new voices, less traditional stars. The pop culture shift came as access widened. Fame became more attainable, and TV felt less formal and hierarchical. Compared to its rivals, ABC was more willing to address generational conflict, acknowledging shifting values, reflect contemporary life. The pop culture shift came as television became a mirror of change, not just a comfort blanket. So ABC's debut finalized NBC, CBS, and ABC as the big three, a shared national TV culture. The pop culture shift came as pop culture became synchronized. Millions of Americans watched the same shows at the same time, creating shared references and rituals. ABC showed that networks could have personalities, branding mattered, audience targeting was strategic. The pop culture shift came as media outlets became cultural identities, a concept that now defines cable channels, streaming platforms, and social media brands. In simple terms, ABC's debut meant television became competitive and innovative. Youth culture gained a platform. Music and TV merged. Pop culture became faster and more inclusive. Shared national viewing became normal. So ABC didn't just add another channel, it helped turn television into the central engine of 20th century pop culture. And that's your nostalgic rewind. This week in pop culture history gave us everything. What's your favorite throwback moment? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a ride in the pop culture time machine. Until next week, stay nostalgic, stay fabulous.